in it. Shout out to each and every one of the people that we're networking with. And guys, make sure that you come and you follow me on the Chris Enzo Core Instagram. It's a new Instagram. As you can imagine, I have been dealing with all the things that you have to deal with when you hop into the influencer side of life and start speaking the truth. I have had tons of friends over the years on Instagram. I'm looking forward to following and having you guys follow me back on each and every one of the platforms that we can, especially on Instagram. So make sure that you reach out to me so I can reach out to you, because we're rebuilding a whole new entire profile. And as you can imagine, if you're in the influencer space, that is quite the headache. But that being said, yo, Tez, man, I feel like you and me have literally been having like great weeks. Like the vlog behind us and shit, bro. From then to now, it's been nothing but a stride for 5-star, dog. How you feeling about what we got going on out here on the interwebs?
1000%, man. We've been out here upgrading the studio damn near every day, every other day, and just we've been making it happen. Been keeping consistent, staying with momentum, and just bringing you guys heat. We've been shooting content that you're gonna see released damn near daily, every day. So we out here just getting better and making this shit happen. Ain't no excuses, just keep going. So the 5-star podcast live stream, the 5-star family is just going up, and we're getting better and better every day. So come join the family and let's reach the top.
Yes, let's reach the top together, man. So preparing for the episode of today, I really wanted to take a time to look into the Looksmaxing thing that's going on right now, right? And, you know, I want to just make a very clear shout out to Clav, man. He seems like a cool guy when you get a chance to go through his stuff online. If you look at our vlogs, if you look at our mutual friends, me, Tez, and him have a lot of mutual friends. And we've now come on to this other area in life where there's so many things going on right now. You've got a decaying society in politics. You've got an uncertain future in terms of money. If you are looking to be in the dating sphere, you've got the government fighting against you. You've got an unsure world of how money is working. It looks like the U.S. currency is just going down to nothing while gold is skyrocketing, which it's leading more and more into a spiritual debate of good versus evil on a regular basis if you're keeping up with what is happening in the world of YouTube. Now, as a part of a decaying society, I wanted to look a little deeper into not necessarily Looksmaxing or Clav, but what that means as a statement overall. Is Looksmaxing, or not even him, not Clav, not Looksmaxing, but the general audience interest in it? Does the general audience, are you guys so interested in it that it is a signal of a decaying society? And what does that mean for you? What does that mean for dating? And what does that mean for the future, right? So funny enough, check this out, man. I remember some years back in college, I'm chilling at one of my guys' houses, right? And he would watch YouTube videos on the regular, and he would watch, I forget that guy's name, Coach Corey or something like that back in the day, if you ever remember him. And then one day out of nowhere, me and him are just talking about the two girls that I'm really heavily messing with at the time, right? Sexually. And me and him, we're talking about those girls, and then he brings up an interesting point, because I say, the thing about which I'm basically alluding to is it's good that they're with me and they're my ladies at the time, but you can feel that the relationship between us is about to die off because it's not really going anywhere and you can't take it seriously. So then me and him have a conversation about Mouse Utopia, or I think it's called Universe 25, right? And Universe 25 talks about how rats in a society are built in a scientist comes and he builds a society for a bunch of mice. What's the plural of mice? Mice? Mouse? Plural of mouse is mice, right?
Yeah, plural of mouse is mice, yeah.
There we go. So he builds a society for a bunch of mice, right? Meese? Just kidding. And when he does that, you are given the understanding that in the experiment, that what happens is that, look, there we are. We're live in this motherfucker. Let's go, man. We're out here, man. We're really doing it. All right, so what you get from this experiment is that what happens is the rats are given everything that they would need to live in a utopia, right? So what that means is that they're given all the food that they'll ever need, all the water that they'll ever need. And I'm going to play a clip here in a little bit of what happens, so you guys get the basic premise of what we're going to talk about, and then we're going to go into a couple different clips from longer interviews, right? So we're going to do a short, and then we're going to do some longer documentary style things, and how that might tie in to what may be the spiritual decay of society. And as we update this as we update you guys on topics like this, you got to know that this is going on so you could play it smart. So I'm hoping with this information, as we dive into what happens in society as it's decaying spiritually, or if everything that we're seeing is signaling a empire in collapse, that you guys pick up the pieces and keep running, because we have no excuses, dog. It doesn't matter if an empire is rising, an empire is prospering, or an empire is falling. Guess what, my guys? You still got to be on top of your shit. You still got to be number one at dating. You still got to be the best of all time. You still have to rise to the challenge. And if there was ever a time for men to rise to the occasion, it is the men of today. So for all the Gen Zers and all the millennials and I guess Generation X or whoever's in that age range, you might have been like teased, or you might have been told psychologically or socially that you're the brattiest or the nothingest or whatever. And some of you might be and some of you might not be, but guess what? We're definitely walking into harder times, and these times are going to demand the absolute most savage best of your character. And if that's the kind of self-improvement that you're looking for, 5-star is here.
1000%. That is what we're doing, and that's really the goal, is just to progress and get through the everyday obstacles, because life's gonna bring you down. There's the propaganda against masculinity today, to where the government, the system, they want men to be bitches, and I've talked about this before multiple times on the podcast. That's just the reality of it. So it's important to stay in tune with this information. That way you stay locked into your goals, you stay locked into progressing. Because if you get caught up in everyday life and you forget about the self-improvement, forget about how to keep your masculinity and be a man and to not feel bad about it, life's going to start to just take control, and you're going to just forget about how you need to be a man and progress, get better, provide for your family. Because most guys are losers. They don't care about being a man. They're okay with letting their wife lead, and that's what's being pushed right now with the propaganda and the narrative, is to just a man should act like a bitch, his wife should lead him, everything's 50-50, and you should feel bad about masculinity. So it's important to just stay in tune with this information, with progressing, self-improvement, getting better. That way you just stay sharp, because without this information, without our YouTube channel, other YouTube channels, you're not gonna find that anywhere. Your average person is just watching streams all day, these streamers, Kai Cenat, and these streamers that aren't really talking about anything important that's going to help you progress. It's just bullshit brain rot that's just going to have you wasting time and not getting anywhere in life. So the whole point of this podcast is just to keep that refresher out there, so you know what the goal is, to not get off track, and to stay consistent, and just remember to just keep progressing and getting better, because that's the ultimate goal. Because getting comfortable, you're just going to stay stagnant. You're just going to stay in the same place you are. And in life, you're either moving forward or progressing. And Myron says this because time is always moving. So if you're not getting better, by default, you're degressing. You're getting worse because time's always moving. And I've been there. I mean, I'm been there, getting comfortable. Life is just, it is what it is, maintaining. But we just have to get better and to keep going, moving forward. Because that's the only way you're going to reach your goals. So it looks like we had a video here.
Big facts. That being said, actually, I was going to play the video on top of this video for you guys, and I can do that. But I actually think you guys can hear what I'm playing. So I'm going to test that real quick and see if you guys can hear that. But me and Tez are going to be taking a look at this video real quick, which is going to summarize and make it easier for you guys to follow along what we're going along with here today. All right, so I don't hear anything. Don't worry, your boys got this on lock. Oh, we don't hear anything because I think it's muted. That's why. Nope. All right, let's see. We got this. We got this. Let's play that shit. Gang. All right, let's see if you guys can hear anything. Can you hear it? Nope. Don't worry. Technical difficulties.
What's the title of it? I can just play it on my phone and you could play the video at the same time so they could just hear it.
The title of it is...
It's like Dystopia 25.
Yeah. Here, I'll actually just send it to you. Yeah. That'll be quicker. Boom. Let's go.
As you see, it's live. Of course, you see the good, the bad, the ugly, but we bring it to you raw, uncut, either way you put it. And so, yeah, that's just it.
Facts, dog. We do it live.
All right, so I'm ready whenever you want to play it. And I'll just put it in here.
All right. Can you hear it? No. Can't hear it.
Or here, just play the video, and I'm going to play it through here so they can see it at the same time.
All right, no problem. So let's do that. Funny enough, it was working in pre-production, and it doesn't want to do it right now. But, hey, man, we're going to fight another day.
Start from the beginning.
Like Mouse Utopia experiment that shocked scientists by its disastrous outcome is one of the most interesting experiments I've ever read. And here's what we can learn from it. In 1968, American scientist John Callan created an environment for mice that had everything: unlimited food, clean water, the perfect climate, and hundreds of nests. In theory, this utopia could support nearly 4,000 mice. To start, Callan just placed 8 mice. And just like Noah's Ark, 4 males and 4 females would go on to populate this utopia. At first, everything looked perfect. The mice bred rapidly, their numbers doubling every 2 months. By day 315, the population reached 600 mice. Eventually, it peaked at 2,200 mice, still far below the maximum capacity. But then, the nightmare began. Despite endless resources, the population began to collapse. Callan noticed disturbing behavior. Some males became withdrawn, spending their days grooming themselves obsessively and refusing to fight or mate. He called them the influencers. Just kidding, the actual term he used was the beautiful ones. There were also dominant males that guarded their own harem and prevented the weaker ones from accessing it. These weaker mice would hang out with the females, but not to mate with them. Interestingly enough, these weaker mice would instead attempt to mate with the dominant males. What? That's so interesting, right? But then, the females also started to abandon and even kill their young. Violence and hypersexuality spread, with mice attacking each other at random. Eventually, reproduction ceased entirely. And by the experiment's 5th year, every last mouse was dead. But the chilling part is, the environment never failed there. There was always ample food, water, and shelter. What failed was society itself. Callan coined the term behavioral sink to describe this collapse. A downward spiral caused not by scarcity, but by the loss of meaningful roles within a community. But why does this matter? Perhaps Universe 25 wasn't just about mice, but a mirror held up to humanity. Perhaps material abundance alone isn't enough for a thriving society. Purpose, community, and skills for social interaction to prevent the collapse of civilization. And perhaps we too are living in our own Universe 25. However, at the end of the day, they are still just mice, and humans are far more complex with our culture, technology, and self-awareness giving us resilience. But the experiment does remain as a haunting reminder that without struggle, connection, and meaning, even paradise can become a prison. This is Universe 25.
All right, so thank you for being patient with us, guys. If you guys get the vibes on that, right? What's basically going on, what he's saying here is that in this utopia that he had created for mice, what happens is that when you give the mice everything and all that they need and all the abundance that they could possibly ever want, it leads to the decay of a society, and it leads to decay in a couple different stages. So no one is, hopefully, if you're keeping up with the times, you're not confused about the fact that there's been Epstein file releases. You're not confused about the fact that there's been a lot of weird stuff going on with the government since 2020. You're not like confused about the fact that everything is just cooked. And if you have a hope for society and things to be better for the future, then fantastic. We want you to be thinking in that way. But in general, what's going on here is that this mouse society that this guy created, it was an experiment done some time back, and then it got brought up when me and this guy were talking about how the girls that we were dealing with at the time were basically bros. And that was the problem that we were dealing with at the time. We're like, the girls, you know, they've had so much sex. They're not really what they claim to be. They're not sugar spice and everything nice. They're being feminine in some moments, but they're really just homeboys when you break it down. And when we were coming to that realization in early college years, we obviously, you know, it's kind of a turn off. You're breaking up with the girls. You got to go and handle your own stuff. You got to go work and one day build a podcast studio. But at the time, you know, you're just coming to accept the fact that this is bad. But, you know, maybe if I brush this off and go work really hard, there'll be something good that comes about it later. Well, what we're showing you is that when society is operating like this, there's a lot of things that are coming into play. So when it comes to getting a woman, I don't care if you're praying every day to make that happen, or cold approaching every day to make that happen, or vetting relentlessly to make that happen, but you need to make it happen on steroids. Like it has never been more hardcore for you to get like a mate that is worth your time, right? Now, in this clip that we are trying to show you guys here, what's going on with the Universe 25 and the Mouse Society is that this guy literally put everything that a mouse would need to procreate and populate. And it started, like he said, 4 males, 4 females, and they went in there and they got a chance to go ahead and have sex and make babies. But because the society was filled with everything that they need, they had all the food that they need. In your life, it might be DoorDash. They had all the entertainment that they need. In your life, it might be TikTok. They had everything that they needed to the point where they stopped having sex and they stopped mating. And there was a group of mice that were deemed the beautiful ones. And that is where I think if we listen to Clavicular closely, the way that I have come to understand his message is that he is the product of the reality that he's facing. So let's break down what that is. He is not from the boomer generation. He is not from the millennial generation. He has been handed down the shit of the boomer generation and the lack thereof of the millennial generation, to the point where now he is literally saying that I have to do this in order to see results. I need to do bone smashing, some drugs here and there, a little bit of crystal meth, really understand the science of what I'm doing. And upon doing so, even though this seems like a superficial thing, I'm going to be championed for how I look, because that is going to be like one of the surface level impulses when it comes to women that's going to make me sexually attractive and have the response that I'm looking for. And if that is true, if it is that the younger generation is at such a stalemate with society, being such a decaying society, that they have to do the most superficial things to have a chance at what we used to look at as a normal mating strategy of successfully, then, well, times are changing, and that's what we're about to discuss on this podcast.
Damn. Yeah, that TikTok, it was good, because that's exactly what's happening today. We have access to everything at our fingertips, whether it's food delivery, corn, of course, replace the C for the P. We have corn. We have just instant gratification right at our fingertips, where it's like, instead of having to go out and get what you want, everything's just right at the palm of your hand. So you don't have to go associate with anyone. You could just stay at home and get everything you need. Imagine if there was no corn or OnlyFans or none of this sex work, or have access to any of these things, like sexually, or you had to go out, you didn't have the opportunity to order food, you couldn't meet girls on Instagram or on dating apps, you had to go outside, people would probably be a lot happier. I mean, you could definitely argue that people were more happier, just more satisfied 10, 15 years ago, before all this Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all this, being more social with each other, going outside and communicating and building those relationships. So it's like, the more of this the more we prioritize this materialistic stuff, these items, it's like the further we get away from each other and building that connection. Because if you look at the numbers, the birth rates, they have declined in today's world. So it's like, people aren't having sex as much. They're not fiending for that relationship. You see men going their own way, women going their own way. And it's like, times have never been as convenient as they are today. So it's like, you would think that the happiness would go up and the satisfaction would go up as times get easier, but it's almost as if it's not. It's like, the more we prioritize this materialistic stuff and the more we have all these modern day conveniences at our fingertips, the more unsatisfied and unhappy we are. And it shows, like, women, like some crazy number of women are on antidepressants, like over 30 or 40, which is crazy. And like, antidepressants and therapy, all those things have gone up with time, even though we have everything at our hands. So that's true. I mean, I would bet that if we took all those things away, all these modern day conveniences, people would be a lot more happier. Because you got Instagram, you're comparing your life to one another. You're like, oh, this person has this, I need this. No, I'm not happy. your girl sees that her friend's boyfriend took her on some crazy trip out of the country to Dubai. Now she's looking at you like, oh, Amanda's boyfriend did this, so now you have to do this. So now you got to compete with that. She sees that on Instagram, or it's not even her friend. She sees some random girl on Instagram on her explore page getting all these bags and all these $1,000 flowers from these roses, dozens of roses places, and taking trips out of the country and whatnot. And she's like, damn, Johnny, why aren't you taking me on these trips? So someone that lives 2,000 miles away from you, because of the convenience of social media, is making your life harder because your girls get to see all these things on Instagram, and it's not reality, even though a small percentage of the world gets to do those things, like take these crazy trips every other weekend or 2 times a month to these different countries, and someone's spoiling their girl. So you're being compared to someone that's completely out of your league. And they always say, like, comparison's the thief of joy. And that's what's happening a lot of times with, social media and having all these things at our fingertips, is that it's just making people more and more unsatisfied, because like you can only have so much.
Yeah, that being said, I'm experiencing hella technical difficulties, but we will not be stopped, man. So here, I'm going to see if we can pull it up on the screen real quick. Clavicular, Looksmaxing, and the modern mouse Utopia. So believe it or not, if you see here on the screen, I don't know if you guys can see that, but somebody actually did draw the comparison between him and the mouse Utopia. So that is one of the videos I actually wanted to play towards the end for you guys, but I actually might just play that now because things are going all over the place haywire during it being live. Actually, let me see if I can show you this one real quick. So we'll get to that one in a second. I just got the other one. Mouse Utopia experiments down the rabbit hole. All right, so me and Tez are going to turn up the volume on this. You guys are going to hear it through the microphones. It's almost like you're here with us, man, in the studio. Welcome to 5 Star, baby. Let's go.
Of the strange research to come out of mid-1900s America, there is little with a legacy as enduring or as terrifying as the mouse Utopia experiments. Taking place throughout the 50s, 60s, and early 70s, the grim fate of the subjects was published in the national magazine Scientific American, and the experiments themselves were largely taken as apocalyptic portents. In a post-war United States, the language used to describe the results, such as behavior sync, became synonymous with fears of an overpopulated world and violent, deviant behavior in cities. Today, they are preserved within fiction, such as Channel 4's conspiracy thriller Utopia and the classic animated
I know you missed us there for a second, but we were glitching out, man. I don't know what happened there. It was a matrix attack. I know you missed us there for a second, but we were glitching out, man. I don't know what happened there. It was a matrix attack. But yeah, we're back at it, coming back full force, man. You could see again, like if they come at us, if the government is trying to take you down in the middle of your video while everything was going good. You know what? Shout out to Vince Aesthetic, man, because him and a couple other people have gone to the island, and what happens after that is that their tech stops working. So that being said, you never know when you're being technologically hacked or whatever's going on, right? But hey, we're here. We're making it happen. Me and Tez plan out these streams for you guys to make sure that you get real value out of it. And you're going to get our real reaction to what's going on here in the Mouse Utopia experiment, and we're going to compare that side by side with the Looksmaxing movement and as it pertains and how that works as it pertains to society today. So we're going to keep playing this. Go ahead, listen to what we got going on here, and let's get this podcast started.
that this didn't come about, the Neo-Malthusians acknowledged his concerns about overpopulation and feared that this pattern would result in the collapse of civilization or, at best, have extreme adverse effects. These fears were given a platform in writing of the time, especially in works such as William Folk's Road to Survival in 1948, and perhaps most famously, Silent Spring by Rachel Carson in 1962. Before the movement's explosion of popularity in the 50s and 60s, however, researchers had already begun work investigating the effects of population growth, and among them was a man named John B. Calhoun. Born in 1917, Calhoun took an early interest in science, specifically ornithology, publishing his first paper on birds when he was 15, but over time, his interest would change. By the time he received his PhD, his focus had turned to ethology, the study of animal behavior. When his education was concluded, he moved with his family to Towson, Maryland, to begin research at Johns Hopkins University in nearby Baltimore, but the research itself would be conducted much closer to home. In and social pathology, his opening paragraph ominously reads so, quote, "In the celebrated thesis of Thomas Malthus, vice and misery impose the ultimate natural limit on the growth of populations. Students of the subject have given most of their attention to misery, that is, to predation, disease, and food supply as forces that operate to adjust the size of a population to its environment. But what of vice? Setting aside the moral burden of this word, what are the effects of the social behavior of..."
Okay, so as you can see from this experiment, just reading it, right? Misery is at all-time high today. Disease, the cough. Food supply, the food supply chain is constantly being tampered with. Adjust the size of the population sounds like the literal agenda of a specific group of people that are very easy to identify. You see, like these things are overlapping a lot today. So this should give you like a real premise into how the people that pull the strings at the top of society are playing with your life, your money, your future, your dating, and the propaganda that you're constantly consuming.
Species on population growth and of population density on social behavior, unquote. To answer this question, he cited 6 of his experiments in particular, all with similar composition and concerningly similar results. The design of these habitats was simple. The layout was a rectangle measuring 10 feet by 14 feet, divided into 4 equal sections by electric fences. 3 of these fences sported bridges over which the rats could climb, while one fence lacked such a bridge, essentially creating one long space that wrapped in on itself. Each section was equipped similarly with a food hopper, water, nesting areas accessible by spiral staircases. But Calhoun, leveraging his experience with the rats, made special changes to encourage specific behaviors. He enticed the rats to use one of the center pens by making the spiral staircase to that pen's living spaces shorter than the others, though he admits this was a comparatively small factor. But the more insidious change was to their food supply. In half of the experiments, Calhoun supplied powdered food, but in the other half he placed feeders of his own design, consisting of hard pellets behind a wire mesh. Half of his experiments began with 32 mice, the other half with 56, of evenly male and female composition, and all having just reached maturity. Calhoun estimated that approximately 40 rats could comfortably be housed in these enclosures, but he would allow these populations to increase to 80 before he would cull them. Almost immediately after introduction, things began to go awry. The females, unsurprisingly, spread themselves out somewhat evenly through the pens, but after the males jockeyed for dominance and those of highest rank were determined, they began to distribute themselves strangely. Less dominant male rats will typically awaken earlier and begin to wander and forage for food, and due to the design of the pen, this meant that they usually would end up in the center sections to eat. During this time, the dominant males of the outer pens would wake up and begin guarding their respective territories. Since there was only one entrance ramp to either end, the dominant males of either pen would bar the return of the less dominant males, forcing the male population to clump in the center pens, while the dominant end males protected what came to be their harems. Only a few other
This is why everyone is single and men stop trying. This is the mouse paradise, a scientific experiment from the 1960s. They made the perfect world for mice with unlimited food, safety, and no predators. In the beginning, they placed 4 females and 4 males and let them multiply. The population exploded, hundreds, then thousands. Then something strange happened. They stopped mating. And within 4 years,
at the the same time as this was happening, the effect of Calhoun's special feeders was taking hold. Since procuring food was such a lengthy process at the hard food feeders, it was common for one rat to join another while in the process of feeding. By this method, the rats slowly became conditioned to eating in the company of other rats until, eventually, the rats would refuse to eat unless another rat was present. Since more rats tended to be in the center pens, this behavior meant that, over time, more and more rats made their way there, further condensing them. This heightened the proximity of an already cramped population. In the experiments with the powdered food, this effect was far less pronounced. With these factors combined, Calhoun noted what he called a behavioral sink, or an increase in pathological activity in the rats due to the stress involved.
That's the term that we're going to be using to describe this, behavioral sink.
The behavioral sink manifested in reduced capacity for nest building and young rearing. Infant rats are extremely dependent upon their mothers for nearly all things. However, under the effects of the behavioral sink, the mothers would often be interrupted in their nest building practices to engage in some other social activity. As time wore on, this led to sparser nests which could not house the young properly. If a mother decided to move her litter, she often would only move some of them or scatter them about the pen in separate locations. What's more, when female rats are ready to mate, the males can sense it, and the enclosed space meant that a female could not escape the continuous advances of the males during these periods. Even when they would enter their nests for a reprieve, they would be followed in and harrowed. These factors together resulted in an extremely high infant mortality rate, in one case reaching 96%. For the males, this manifested in different ways. The dominant males would occasionally lash out in violence against the other members of the pen, including infants, often biting and wounding their tails. Among the lower class males were three groups. The first he described as the homosexuals, which he immediately corrects as pansexuals, who would not compete for status, but would often attempt to mate with any other rat, regardless of gender or age. Much like in the end pens, these advances went unchallenged. The second group he described as somnambulists, who moved slowly through the pen without interacting with other individuals in any fashion, and the other rats in turn ignored them
Sigma
except
males.
in rare circumstances. These rats externally he described as fat, sleek, and healthy looking. But to him, the strangest group was the third, which he named the probers. These rats were hyperactive, hypersexual, and pansexual. Despite violence from the dominant males, they would viciously pursue females in heat, eschewing any sort of courtship ritual and following them into their burrows to mate. Later on in the experiments, they would often find the corpses of the improperly cared for young, which they would cannibalize. In time, one of Calhoun's assistants would publicly describe these pens as hell. At this point, Calhoun ended the experiments, but he predicted that these pathological changes would have eventually led to the deaths of the colonies. At their conclusion, he would take the 4 healthiest males and females and allow them to breed, but their behavior had been so inexorably altered that none of their pups survived beyond weaning.
Booking.com has all kinds of states.
All right, so we'll pause it there for now, right? But Tez, before we move on to the next section of this, give me your breakdown, bro. What do you see in here, and how does it correlate to the modern day?
Yeah, it's similar to what I was saying before. It's really the same shit. It's just the same shit in a different way than the first video that we watched. Yeah, bro, the more shit that we have going on in the world today, the more distractions and things that we have, it's just makes it harder to mate with, people who are distracted, social media and things like that. And at the end of the day, you got to just find a way to make it happen.
So one of the key things that I want you guys to understand about what's going to happen in this documentary here is that it's broken down into 4 decaying phases of society. And for most of us, you might feel that the future is uncertain, while also at the same time, if you're taking control of your life, you're making your own future, which is the only way to win, right? You need to plan your future, make your future, fight for your future, and be diligent about your future 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You don't have time to be twiddling your thumbs and playing around on TikTok. You don't have time to let days pass. You don't have time to not be planning. So when they go and they break down these phases of society here, I mean, this overlaps with our real life so much, right? First and foremost, when I was a kid, the way that they were trying to market homosexuality was like, these people were so oppressed and they were stuck in the closet and they were stuck in the closet so much that blah, blah, blah. The propaganda was it's okay to be gay, right? So they try to push that on you and force that on you and make that real. And they infiltrated the females first. They got the women to really believe this BS. And then they got the women to promote it. And then the men who were straight men just kind of like were like, well, okay. Well, if the girl says this is okay, it must be okay. And then there was a whole propaganda push of like, you know, really, guys, what you're not understanding is all that masculinity and all that kingship and all that brutal force that you have to plan your world and make your world better for yourself and be a kingmaker of your own reality is not really what you should be doing. What you should be doing is getting in touch with your feminine side. How does that strike you? When was the first time you ever heard that?
Like, get in touch with your feminine side and not be masculine and be just gay. When did that? I don't think I started hearing that until probably like 2022. That's when I started hearing that. When I moved to Seattle and Washington, yeah, that's when I started hearing about that, like that shit. Yeah.
Yeah, I started hearing about it in public school the most, and I swear to you, it was very early for me. It must have been around middle school, high school, when you're hearing feminine side, feminine side, feminine side. And then that's when you're hanging out with, like, you know, people in PE or math class or lunch or whatever, and then guys are making gay jokes back and forth. Here at the 5-Star live stream, I get it if you guys are doing that here and there, but I would strongly urge you in the modern day to completely cut that shit out. Don't do that shit. And I want to say that there's a reason for me bringing that up today on the pod, right? If you watch, or I'll just tell you from my personal experiences out here, I deal with a lot of women. I deal with women constantly, and I'm always getting, you know, their perspective, and I'm always hearing the stuff that they want to say. And when you hear what they're saying, a lot of the times what they'll say is they'll say that they'll deal with guys that are a little bit gay, like have a little bit gay in them, right? And you got to understand, biologically, within your nature, you're not born that way. And this is a bunch of bullshit. They're trying to condition you and make you think, oh, you're born that way, blah, blah, blah. Listen, the way that I see it is you're either sexually traumatized or demon possessed, right? If to go down the homosexual route. And it's a very demonic thing to be a homosexual. The practice is very demonic. It's very anti-biblical. I mean, Leviticus 20:13, if a man lay with a man as he does another man, death to both parties, right? So it says that, the gay people know that, society knows that, and we're all down dancing around it, and we're all skirting around it, and we're all pretending that that's not the case, that it's not a satanic practice. So here, you know, I'm not necessarily sure if mice are deep in the world of Satan worship, right? But at some biological level, there's a couple things in play that I see happening here in the modern day. Funny enough, I was just talking about this, that the guy in More Plates, More Dates was doing a episode of a vlog with Will Tennyson, and they were going up to people and asking people if they do steroids. Now, keep in mind, steroids have had a massive push in society lately. When I was growing up as a kid, in general, people that did steroids kept that under wraps. They kept it low key, and they would lie and deny till the day that they die when it comes to steroids. But, you know, Clavicular and people in that in that group, and like in the modern day today, steroids are a lot more out in the open. And like I said, funny enough, More Plates, More Dates was talking to Will Tennyson and saying, if you take steroids, you're going to be dealing with an increase of homosexual behavior, which is freaking crazy. I had no idea about that, and I don't know how many people are dealing with those kind of demons. But if you guys have noticed, there has been a recent video of Larry Wheels going around being like a cuck and having all these like extremely crazy fantasies. And if any of that is true, and I'm not attacking Larry in any way, if anything, if you, Larry, are dealing with any problems here at the 5-Star live stream, we are a podcast and a platform that would never kick you when you're down. We would always want to help you get to a better place, right? So again, no attack on anybody here, but if you watch the videos, or if you've seen the Larry file leaks, what's going on there is that he's engaging in cuck behavior, which is kind of leading to like a homosexual behavior, and he's a very good example of somebody on steroids. Let's put a pin in this conversation and mark that for the future. This might pay off in due time. And I'm not dissing Clav at all, but when I first was presented with like the whole black pill ideology, and I'm seeing him doing his thing and he's touching the guys' faces and he's doing these things, I'm looking at that as that's kind of gay. But nonetheless, let's look at what Alex Jones has said. You know, they put chemicals in the water that turn the freaking frogs gay, right? And that is one of the first signs of your society being infiltrated, is the point that I'm getting at. So here we are as men in the modern day. Men in the modern day are looking to become kings. We're in the gym. We're getting fit. We're working hard. We are real world providers. We build our own world. We build opportunity, and we lock in because we understand that with a little bit of land and a home and a family and kids, you're passing on your biological lineage to the future, and we're all about that. But that is under attack. We don't have the American dream anymore. We are we're in war. We're in a straight up war. It's a very subtle war, and we're being infiltrated from different angles, right? And you have to understand that this is going to affect you as a man, and this is going to affect your dating strategy, and this is going to affect you on different categorical levels. But if you're not aware of this, you won't even realize that you're engaging in the attack or playing along with it. And if you're playing along with your enemy, you're going to die, man. That is not how you win any war. That's not how you play the game. You need to be very clear that you're against this thing, that you're averted to these things, that if they want to push this type of propaganda on you, you push that away and you speak up and you say, no, I will not accept that. I'm not with it. And the second that you start defying these things, you're a man. Welcome to the Matrix, my boy. This is how you get past that, right? So then the next thing that they were saying after the homosexual thing was like I can't even remember the word, Sabarabaris or whatever. But what it was alluding to is a mouse that is very like alone and independent. So imagine like someone that you know that's always on their headphones, always on YouTube or always on TikTok or always in their phone and isolating themselves from society, not social, just in an echo chamber, completely just gone in an echo chamber, lost in entertainment. Won't even. So like I said to Tez one time, I'm passing by my old high school. I see all the kids walk out, and it's not as lively as it was when I was in high school. There's no people like hanging out with each other and cheering each other on. They all are acting like it's worse than jail, because like you would expect camaraderie, but here the kids are all walking literally. This is not even 2020 rules. They're all walking about 4 to 6 feet apart. They all got their headphones on. None of them are talking to each other. They're all drones, right? So that overlaps with this. And these things don't happen because they're happening genuinely. None of this is happening as if it's organic. This is war. And if you want to look at where the war is coming from, I would say read deep into the Epstein files and see who's connecting what at the top and see how it flows into the bottom. And you need to realize that you're a pawn in a game that is not meant for you to win. But as soon as you realize you're a pawn, that is your remedy to changing yourself into a freaking king. And that's how you want to play this game. But before I keep talking, dog, Tez, tell me where we're at with this, man. What do you think about what we got going on here?
No, yeah, you hit it. I mean, that's really it. You have to know what's going on so you don't just lose by default. It's like the wife who says that she's controlling her husband and he thinks he's in control, but he's not. It's like you think you're controlling your life, but this has been predetermined by the society, by the system for you to be behaving the way that you do behave. So you think you're behaving this way because you made the decision to behave this way? No, they subdued you to do the things that you do, whether it's not wanting to reach your goals and go to work or do things. You've been subdued. They softened you up to this so you can behave the way that you behave. So a lot of times you're not making the decision. You didn't really make the decision. They think that you made the decision on your own, but in reality, it wasn't you, it was the system. And that's really the best way to control someone or get someone to do something that you want them to do, is to have them think that they're in control. So if you're a woman out there who's like, I want to chase my career, follow my career, I don't want to have kids, or I want to wait till I'm 35, 40 to have kids, I need to put my career first. You believe that that's what you genuinely deep down desire, that's what you want, that's what you are biologically made up to do. No, it's not. those beliefs that you had, you were programmed to believe those things. So you have to be aware of these things so you know what you're fighting against. Instead of thinking that these are my ideas, I came up with this, I did this, it's no, like they want you to do this. Not for the better, but for the worse. For the better for them, but the worse for you. So stay aware with that.
And single-handedly, when it comes to women in specific, and it happens to men too, trust me, I know a ton of blue pill guys. I've run into my fair share of them. They are the biggest proponents of believing the lie, spreading the lie, and thinking that the lie is, in fact, their idea. They really think, oh, no, it's me who thinks it's okay. I need to be more feminine. It's me, actor Jason Momoa, that thinks, oh, if I paint my fingernails and wear scrunchies in my hair like my daughters, that's the real masculine way to be a man. And that is not how you do it, bruv. That's never even in the Bible, it says to not be effeminate. It literally is specifically a command of God to not do this thing, for if to do this thing, you are actually engaging in a sinful practice. So you got to understand nature, right? Nature is that of the creator. What is created? The way that we are created is not to live like this. A man is to find a woman or women and get his freak on and make some kids. Same with the male mouse and the female mouse. They're meant to do that out in nature, right? But when you put them in a society and you start experimenting with them and you start altering the way that things go outside of nature and is outside of the creator's intended purpose, you start reaping the rewards of a fruitless society that's wreaking havoc on the living organisms inside that society, right? So if you go back a couple moments in this video that we were watching here, there is another overlap that we're dealing with. When a female was in heat, there'd be like 5 or 6 different mice all over that female, completely wrecking this female's mating strategy because she has too many options and she's about to get gangbanged by everybody, right? So when all the rats are chasing her and she's off here and she's basically like denying her mating strategy while also foregoing her feminine practice and her female practice. Her female practice is to be that of someone that demonstrates the characteristics of a mother. Yet, the babies are being cannibalized. In recent times, that sounds like that sounds like the Epstein files, if you guys have been keeping up with that. That sounds very familiar with the modern day. It overlaps a lot. This goes from like a conspiracy framed thing to a possible framed thing to like reality. You are looking at a scientific experiment that happened in the past that is literally mirroring reality today. And if you kept up with those files, you will see that, like, when it comes to, let's say, transhumanism or these agendas in cloning, that, for example, there's a TV show on Netflix called Pantheon, right? And I'm going to show you a clip from that outside of the podcast today because we don't want to get a copyright strike, right? But in Pantheon, what they do is they do things called uploaded consciousness, which is where you kill the host, the human, you take a snapshot of their brain, and you upload it into a robot for evil practices. And these things have been done in movies, and the people that do these evil things are watching the same TV that you're watching, are consuming the same experiment that you're consuming, and they're getting their ideas from the same thing that you're watching here. So what I'm telling you is that there's people at the top of your life that have infinite resources, power, and corporatocracy power operate outside the realm of power that you live in, essentially reducing you to that of a slave, where if you're not aware of these things, you are going to be completely wiped out from reality as your life is being taken over on multiple layers. So as you'll see in the 5-Star Podcast, we're talking about direct agendas, we're talking about warfare, we're talking about economics, we're talking about finances. Each and every one of these things is something that as a man you need to be aware of, because if you don't handle your health bar in each and every one of these categories, you are going to be taken down because the forces that be are coming for your livelihood at every single foreseeable level. You feel me?
1000%.
All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and play this and go on to the next section of what we got going on here.
The strangest group was the third, which he named the probers. These rats were hyperactive, hypersexual, and pansexual. Despite violence from the dominant males, they would viciously pursue females in heat, eschewing any sort of courtship ritual and following them into their burrows to mate. Later on in the experiments, they would often find the corpses of the improperly cared for young, which they would cannibalize. In time, one of Calhoun's assistants would publicly describe these pens as hell. At this point, Calhoun ended the experiments, but he predicted that these pathological changes would have eventually led to the deaths of the colonies. At their conclusion, he would take the 4 healthiest males and females and allow them to breed, but their behavior had been so inexorably altered that none of their pups survived beyond weaning.
So they sucked the tit and then died.
This short article enraptured its US audience, and the effects on both the scientific world and popular culture were immediate. People began to relate Calhoun's rat experiments to modern city life, and in an era where fear of social deviance was reaching an extreme high, it was largely seen as a reflection of the current time and where society could be heading, egged on by Calhoun's provocative language and allegorical design of his test environment, made to look like a city. Population density quickly became a common topic. Psychologist Carl Rogers, in his work Some Social Issues Which Concern Me, stated that, quote, "The resemblance to human behavior is frightening. In humans, we see poor family relationships, the lack of caring, the complete alienation, the magnetic attraction of overcrowding, the lack of involvement which is so great that it permits people to watch a long, drawn-out murder without so much as calling the police. Perhaps all city dwellers are inhabitants of a behavioral sink," unquote. Soon after, studies of dense urban environments were conducted to see if these effects translated directly to humans, but what they found was inconclusive and unsatisfying. Despite the suggestions of Calhoun's rats, humans in cities reacted differently or sometimes opposite the manner that researchers expected, depending on the location. No matter how they tried, no evidence of a widespread behavioral sink could be found in urban areas. But this did not dissuade Calhoun. Even as others explored the problem of overcrowding, Calhoun frantically continued his research. Now a celebrated success and emboldened by the public acceptance of his ideas, he resumed his work at NIM on an even larger scale, though again away from the public eye. He spent his time on new subjects as he continued to perfect his enclosures and experiments until finally, after 11 years, Calhoun revealed his magnum opus through an article he entitled Death Squared, which was published in the journal Proceedings of the Royal Society of Medicine in January of 1973. The lengthy opening to this article was undeniably apocalyptic. Calhoun wrote, "I shall largely speak of mice, but my thoughts are on man, on healing, on life and its evolution. Threatening life and evolution are the 2 deaths, death of the spirit and death of the body. Evolution, in terms of ancient wisdom, is the acquisition of access to the tree of life," unquote. He goes on to heavily reference revelations and of the riders of the apocalypse, using them to proclaim that the Hippocratic Oath applies not only to the body, but to the spirit. After this dramatic introduction, he described his test. For the most part, these new experiments were similar to his 1963 trials, including unlimited access to food and water, protection from the elements and predators, and safeguards against disease. Many parts, however, were drastically altered. As Calhoun mentions in his introduction, the Norway rats used in his first publicized experiments were replaced with albino house mice, which were taken from a breeding group from the National Institutes of Health made specifically to prevent communicable disease. To fit his new subjects, Calhoun had designed an entirely new enclosure. This version was much more vertical, with 16 wall-mounted housing areas for the rats at the tops of long metal tubes, which Calhoun called walk-up apartments. At the bottom of each apartment was a virtually unlimited supply of food, water, and nesting material. With the space provided, Calhoun estimated that it could potentially hold 3,840 mice. He named this enclosure Universe 25. Calhoun's methods also had changed. Rather than instituting population controls, he would interfere far less. His plan was to place 8 mice in the enclosure, 4 male and 4 female, and simply watch and wait. Calhoun observed 4 distinct phases in the ensuing experiment. Phase A was predictable, constituting the time period before the first new mice were born, which ended up being 104 days. For the mice, these days were, quote, marked by considerable social turmoil. After the social order was established and the first brood was born, the population began Phase B, which Calhoun named the exploitation phase. During this time, the mice doubled in number every 55 days as new young grew to maturity and had their own young. This doubling continued until day 315, after which the doubling rate slowed to a rate of 145 days, nearly 3 times as long. By this point, the different broods had clumped into one side of the pen, exhibiting the same sort of clumping as the Norway rats, but this time without any coaxing from Calhoun's designs. This change in the rate of procreation marked Phase C, which Calhoun labeled as the stagnation phase. This is when the most notable events occurred, and they eerily mirrored Calhoun's rat experiments. In a natural setting, those mice which find no social niche will leave the colony, but in this experiment, emigration was impossible, and so those forced to remain withdrew from society. These dejected males formed a large pool in the center of the enclosure. They quickly became characterized by both their inactivity and their many scars and wounds. Occasionally, they would grow agitated and attack one another, and with nowhere to retreat, the recipient of these attacks would simply lay still and endure the assault. The outcast females, rather than joining them, would retreat to the highest apartments and live quietly among one another. It was during this time that the behavioral sink manifested, with mice gathering around specific food hoppers in large numbers, while others remained almost entirely untouched, showing how, again, the need for social interaction had become so intertwined with the need for food that the former had overtaken the latter. The males who had won the initial fights also were placed under extreme stress. As more and more mice reached maturity from within and without, the leaders of the social groups continually had to patrol and defend their territory. Eventually, they reached the point of exhaustion and could not defend the females within their group. These females were therefore forced to defend the nest themselves, even when nursing their young, leading to generalized aggressive behavior. This aggression would inevitably be misdirected onto their young, who would be wounded by their mothers and forced to leave the nest before they were finished weaning. Much like the rats, the mother mice would also forget some of their young when moving from one nesting site to another. Due to the added stress of defending their territory, sometimes the mothers would reabsorb unborn mice in the womb, further reducing the fertility rates. Calhoun writes, "For all practical purposes, there had been a death of societal organization by the end of Phase C. Finally, there was Phase D, which Calhoun entitled the death phase. This phase was characterized largely by an entire generation of young who had been rejected by their mothers early and forced to leave the nest, and they were therefore unable to exhibit normal social behavior. This manifested in numerous ways. The females of this generation had far fewer children, and those that did have children lacked the maternal instincts necessary to raise them beyond weaning." Calhoun goes on to describe the males of this generation. Quote, "Male counterparts to these non-reproducing females were soon dubbed the beautiful ones. They never engaged in sexual approaches toward females, and they never engaged in fighting, and so they had no wound or scar tissue. Thus, their pelage remained in excellent condition. Their behavioral repertoire became largely confined to eating, drinking, sleeping, and grooming, none of which carried any social implications beyond that represented by contiguity of bodies." Unquote. As the last mice with reproductive instincts aged beyond their fertility, Calhoun declared that the last male would die around day 1780 of the experiment, effectively rendering the colony dead as it would be unable to produce any more young. His present tense language implied that, when the article was published, the colony was still technically alive, though its final fate was practically sealed. Calhoun closed his article with a call to action. "For an animal so complex as man, there is no logical reason why a comparable sequence of events should not also lead to species extinction. If opportunities for role fulfillment fall far short of the demand by those capable of filling roles and having expectancies to do so, only violence and disruption of social organization can follow. Individuals born under these circumstances will be so out of touch with reality as to be incapable even of alienation. Their most complex behaviors will become fragmented. Acquisition, creation, and utilization of ideas appropriate for life in a post-industrial, cultural, conceptual, technological society will have been blocked. Just as biological generativity in the mouse involves this species' most complex behaviors, so does ideational generativity for man. Loss of these respective complex behaviors means death of the species."
All right, so how do you think that overlaps with real life today?
Yeah, today it's interesting, man. Today it's like dating's been harder. Girls, they only want the top guys, so a lot of guys feel like they're not able to compete, and men are just going their own way. So it's interesting, bro.
Like, if you guys remember a moment ago, there was a bunch of rats that were being confined to different areas of the cage, right? And some of the rats were stuck in, it would be like one section for food, nothing food, nothing food, because they needed the social activity to happen, because eating needed to be a social thing, right? That is like a direct comparison to clout, or this what you call social media, which is a slang term for the internet. That would be like the internet today, right? So literally, me and Tez are seeing this shit all the time out here in the world of influencers and celebrity and podcasts. People, the average person, and beyond the average person's kids, they want clout more than anything, much the way in which those rats wanted the social activity of eating to be intertwined more than anything, which clearly falls outside of normal behavior. And when you leave your intended behaviors for too long, I think we're in the fourth phase of our American society, and could be pretty much the earth as a whole with the directions we've been going. I think we're in the death phase, which is really horrible to say. But that leads me back to the mice that stood out as a circumstance of what is going to be the end result. The beautiful ones. The beautiful ones. Society had been so cooked. Mothers lost their skills. Sex had been rampant in the wrong way at an all-time high. Women want the top of something that they can't have, that doesn't exist. Women have essentially left reality and went completely delusional. And what happens is the end result is that there's the remaining rats that are left, and they are the discards, essentially, of mothers that were never really good at mothering, to the point where the only thing that really the only thing that rat had was the non-complexities of its existence. It didn't have the mating strategy down. It didn't have it wasn't adapting to weather seasons. It wasn't preparing for like the fall or the winter. It wasn't like getting ready to have babies in the spring. It was outside of its circadian rhythm. It was outside of its cycles, right? So because the mouse is literally its lesser self and only can connect with its baser instincts, it only would eat, drink, sleep, and make itself pretty. Eat, drink, sleep, make itself look good. Which ties in to the black pill clavicular Looksmaxing movement. Let's look at what the black pill would be in accordance to the mouse society. Well, if society had decayed and the mothers are getting smashed by everybody, and they all are feeding in the wrong way, and the mothers completely have lost their skills to be feminine, which on the episode of Fresh and Fit I saw last night, they asked the girls who here cooks, and none of them raised their hands because all of them are using DoorDash. They don't even cook anymore. So these women would probably be very bad women to make a kid with. Why wouldn't the mouse be black-pilled against society? Why wouldn't it be? Because it's not getting the nurturing. It's not getting the love. It's not being taught what the seasons are for. It's not understanding the love of a mother through food. Why wouldn't you be just concentrating on making yourself the most attractive for literally no other reason? It's just your baser instincts. It's like, I'm left here in a decaying society, and I am the eventuality of a system in decay. And we might be in the last phase of society if people like this are coming out. Because, again, the problem's not with Clavicular or Clav or him or his movement, and he's the circumstance of an eventuality. So it seems that he might be the first little warning sign, like a little knock on the door, like, hey, guess what? The end is here, and you're going to not just see me going the nip tuck route and looking very beautiful and making myself look the best that I possibly can for something I don't even care about. I don't even care if I'm infertile, because sex and procreativity doesn't really even stand out to me. I might be the signal to you that there might be an entire wave of society, an entire wave of men that act like this and do this and think that this is a good thing. But why wouldn't they? Because there's no more characteristics left in society for them to come to the conclusion that there is a higher way of living and being, which is where 5-star comes in. We preach to that higher level of making your life better and being. But dog, tell me, what do you think is being ushered in here when you see all these different components connect all these dots?
Yeah, it all leads to just people not being happy, not being satisfied, and everyone, not only men are going their own way, women are going their own way too, and it's creating a divide to where no one wants to be together and everyone's mad at each other, and one party doesn't know what the other party wants, so everyone's just divided and separate, and that's why the birth rates are low and everyone's doing their own thing, because it really is a rigged dating marketplace. I think Rolo or Myron said that, like, it's just rigged. It just doesn't make any sense. Like, if you're an average dude in America trying to get a girl, you're fucked. And if you do get one, she's just gonna disrespect you, walk all over you if you don't have your shit in order and you're not masculine. The average man's not masculine. He's a half female. He's a half imp. And yeah, so it's like, I get it. That's why you have to become the best version of yourself in order to make it work and to win this game, because it's messed up. Even if, in a sense, if you have to be black pill for a period of time just to get your life in order, because if you're an average guy going out to get a girl, you're gonna waste so much time by not getting the girl, to where you could have put that energy and effort into yourself, build yourself up, get out of the game for a minute, and then come back as a 2.0 version of yourself. And then you actually start seeing some results. So when I say you have to be black pill for a period of time, that just means go into monk mode, focus on yourself, grind up, get stronger, make more money. That way you can then enter the dating marketplace and get some results. Because if you're an average guy out there who's just trying to get girls, you're going to waste so much time on not getting any kind of return on your investment as far as going out there and trying to get a girl, that you can just invest that time and energy into yourself. That way you can come back, get some results, and you do that. So that's really the best option, and it makes sense to me.
And that literally comes back into when you were just saying that a lot of girls are going their own way. WGTOW, right? Like MGTOW. That's an abbreviation, MGTOW, men going their own way. Now the sadly converse side of that, WGTOW, women going their own way. You see exactly here in the mouse society that when the women were reaching the implications of Utopia 25, that the female mice would go and just retreat to the highest parts of society and just wait there and just stay there and isolate themselves, which is very much like the women of today. See, the thing is, you're not fighting, you need to know what you're fighting here. You're not fighting biology. You're fighting anti-biology. You're fighting people that are being programmed to go against their core dynamics, their core instincts. You're fighting against women that are trained to be men and who want to go to work and work hard and be the best at their job for doing damn near nothing that matters. And now you're also fighting against men that want to be women and they want to be feminine so that they could use femininity to attract women, which is like the most delusional thing that you could possibly do. And then while men are acting like women and women are acting like men, in this scenario here, there was an outbreak of violence between the male rats, I believe. And I don't think in the modern day society you will see outbreaks of violence in society, sure, but I think that you could see an even greater sense of violence from indirect, they're not necessarily physical attacks that everyone's going through. So it might be from the government to you, it might be from the internet and cyberbullying or attacks to you, it might be from headlines and propaganda to you, and it might be from other people's perception of you and your own social dynamic in your own life, and all these different attacks might be an almost overlapping exact equivalent that may lead you to feel regression, isolation, distancing, pushing yourself away from exactly what you need to be engaged in. Because for a man to be rich, you need to be able to provide value to many other people. For a man to be successful in dating, you need to be a valuable person to be in a relationship with to one or many, many, many other women. You literally need to be a social creature. Being against society, being against people, being against humans is going to get you nowhere in this lifetime. In fact, I'd go as far to say, for all the introverts in the world, fuck you. In terms of dating, introverts, your mentality of being introverted sucks for dating. If you're introverted, it's just not going to work for you and the way that you see the world. And if social anxiety and all this social bullshit is something that you need to get over, fuck you, man. You are the weakest of the weak. You are the lamest of the lame. The lens that you look at life through is just whack. In dating, you need to be extroverted. You need to be out there. You need to be making it happen. You need to be social. You need to be valuable. You need to be on your game. And you need to be aware of the fact that the government and many other institutions are doing everything that they can to deceive you and destroy everything that you've built, no matter what it is. I've said that in one of the very first podcasts that me and Tez did. I was talking about how the food is clearly being manipulated and altered to destroy you and make your life unhealthy. The women are being programmed in such a way that it's hard, man. It's hard. They're being programmed in such a way where it's going to be hard for you to get anything valuable without vetting a girl the right way. And keep in mind, these steps of vetting are steps that keep you protected in the modern day. And if you're not constantly playing the game is going to start playing you. I actually said this to one of my guys in Miami one time. He's from Ohio, and he was not really doing well in like cold approaching the girls. And then I told him, like, bro, if you're not doing the fucking, someone's gonna start fucking you.
Yeah, for sure, it's a fact. And it's crazy because imagine the psyop and the propaganda that has to be done for women to go against men. Our job is to make women's lives easier. We provide, we work, they stay home. It's like saying that if you walk outside your doorstep, there's $1 million there waiting for you. You just have to pick up the cash, you bring it into your house. But then someone tricks you into thinking like, no, if you grab that $1 million, then it's going to want you to stay at home and take care of the kids, or it's going to, imagine someone makes you feel bad about grabbing that $1 million. They trick you into thinking that $1 million is it's evil. It's gonna, which it can of course hurt you, but in this case, like, it's simple $1 million. That's it. You grab the cash, you bring it inside, you're a millionaire. But someone tricks you into thinking that money it's not good money. It's do not take it because it's gonna string you. It's gonna try to control you, take advantage of you. Then the person tells you that, just takes the money for themselves. That's what's happening. The propaganda is doing that to the women, where it's like, if as a man, our job is to make your lives easier, and you go against that, there has to be a lot of psyop propaganda that's being done for you to want to say, I want to take the hard route and go to work. Instead of you taking care of me, I want to be strong and independent. And I want to put in blood, sweat, and tears into my job. I want to work these long hours. I want to have to go to school. I want to have to do all this shit just so I can be independent. It's like, that doesn't make any... If I'm a woman and a man is working to make my life easy, it's like, why not? Like, it's crazy.
It's like an obvious no-brainer. If you're a woman, why not just be a woman? Why are you doing all that? Why are you being gay with extra steps? Why are you being a man with all these extra steps? Why are you being a problem with all these extra steps? Why can't you just make our life easier? In fact, I don't think women are capable of making men's lives easier, bro. I think all of the tyranny that we've ever gone through in the world is from you Jezebel-ass females not being women when you need to be women. This reminds me of something I've seen Andrew Tate say before. Something along the lines of, you cannot imagine how much male energy has been zapped from dealing with female bullshit, bro. Like, dog, women, y'all suck, man. Shout out to my guy who does recruiting, right? Chris over there at FNF. He literally will tell you, yo, I have the hardest job in the world, because the hardest job in the world is getting girls to commit to what they say they're going to commit to. If they say they're going to be here on Saturday, they show up on Saturday. If they're going to be here on Sunday, they show up on Sunday. If they say 6, they're going to be there at 6. He's like, dog, like, you don't understand. They'll be canceling for nothing and then, you know, be banned forever and all that. But like, they don't. When you're a guy, you're more likely, I would imagine, to stick to what you said you're going to do. You're going to hold yourself accountable to your word. You say something, you do something. You're a girl, there's no such thing as a girl of her word, right? She says anything all the time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even if it makes no sense. And your job as a man is to train her. So that's what you have to do. You have to say, F the government, F this way of life, F the financial system, screw this, screw this, screw that. I have to be reliant upon me. I have to be reliant upon my relationship with God. I have to be reliant upon my relationship to stack up skills and be flawless at delivering game all the time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because that is what it's going to take. So you can't really rest in this warfare that we're in, because if my suspicions are right, if we are in the 4th phase of what they were talking about there, the death phase, which is like, you know, so sad to say, but if society is at a decay, and foreign affairs would make it so that they'd like to eliminate us and take over this place, and nobody's going to push back and do anything, what do you think is going to happen to you, man? What do you think is going to happen to your generation? You know, let's say 100 years goes by. Is any of your offspring on the earth still? Did your seed make it through society to show a family that's going to be resilient against all odds to have the right to exist on earth? Are you going to make God proud for the right for you to even have an existence on earth because you took the first command seriously? Which I'm not saying it's a commandment, but one of the first things that you read is be fruitful and multiply. Make that ish happen. Are you going to do it? So this next video right here is the second video that we were going to play through all the technical difficulties, right? And if you look here, I don't know if you guys could see it, but they actually have Clav on the thumbnail. So what I'm thinking before we made this episode, someone else is already tying the dots together and saying this might be an eventuality of a series of circumstances that delivers this right to your face. This was inevitable with the way that society is going, but it goes to show you that society, unless you go, oh, this is an industry plant and he was planted here by the government and the CIA to push an agenda down your throat, that's one thing. But even if it was that, even if it's fake or even if it's real, which I believe that what I'm seeing is real here, that it still pushes you to the same eventuality of a decaying society. And you need to know what you're doing, especially if you're out here as a man building your life up. All right, so let's go. Let's see what we got here.
John Calhoun, an American scientist, did an experiment with some mice. He got 8 mice, 4 males, 4 females, and put them in a big enclosure that had food, water, shelter, everything they needed. Now this was actually the 25th of these he did. He called it Universe 25 because of that, but it later became known as the Mouse Utopia experiment. Now a lot of weird stuff happened with the mice and their behavior. The experiment was done actually to try and study how humans would react to overcrowding, urbanization, overpopulation. And the main result of the experiment was what John Calhoun would term the behavioral sink. This idea that in certain conditions of captivity, overcrowding, not enough resources, stuff like that, animals, and presumably humans as well, would develop what he called behavioral sinks. These dysfunctional behaviors that might even mimetically spread from individual to individual and eventually affect all of society. And one of these behavioral sinks was the behavior of a subset of mice that he called the beautiful ones. These were male mice who were beta males. They weren't alphas with harems of females, but unlike a lot of the other beta mice, they wouldn't even try to get the females. They wouldn't even pursue them. They instead pushed themselves away into little corners, into their own little individual pens, and they would spend all day grooming themselves, pruning themselves, trying to make themselves look as pretty as possible, and yet never pursuing women, never actually taking real action, just trying to make themselves as pretty as possible. Now, I've known about this experiment for a while, but I was reminded of it after I watched a video by Michael Knowles interviewing Clavicular, real name Brady Peters, I believe. Now, he is one of the top Looksmaxing e-celebs right now. What is Looksmaxing? Well, it's an online community, theory, practice, philosophy, general kind of movement focused on increasing one's physical appearance, making oneself more beautiful and good looking. Now, I've been getting questions about Looksmaxing for as long as I've been doing videos, whether here or on TikTok, because I, of course, talk about physiognomy and face reading, about the meaning of someone's appearance, about their facial features, and what that can tell us about their personality. So, of course, people think, well, is there an intersection between this and Looksmaxing? And there somewhat is, in that features that are traditionally considered physically attractive oftentimes correlate with personality traits that are considered attractive. For example, testosterone makes you look more manly, and also makes you act more manly, makes you more confident and aggressive. But today I want to talk about Clavicular himself, not about his appearance, but about who he is and his philosophy and my take on Looksmaxing. Now, like I said, Looksmaxing is a philosophy and movement and community centered around increasing one's own physical attractiveness. And this grows out of the incel scene that started developing in various forums and these sort of dark corners of the internet. In the 2010s, I remember a lot of friends of mine at the time actually were starting to get into this stuff, like the decile scale, the 1 to 10 scale. I remember seeing that back in 2014, 2015, and lots of other early incel stuff. And so within the incel community, there are lots of different maxims, different ways that you can elevate yourself in order to make yourself more attractive to a potential partner and get a girlfriend and get laid and feel the good dopamine in your brain. Some include gym maxing, which is about getting buff, getting strong, wealth maxing, becoming rich and powerful so you can marry whoever you want. But the one that seemed to have won out was Looksmaxing, just looking good. And eventually Looksmaxers began expanding these stated benefits beyond just picking up chicks, getting hookups, but into all areas of life. Looksmaxers, and Clavicular especially, will tell you that having a better appearance will make you more successful in all areas of life because people are shallow. The world judges by the appearance. That's what they call the black pill. It's realizing that although we tell people don't judge a book by its cover, people still do. Now, from my perspective, I would say that this is meaningful and actually good because indeed physical features do correlate with personality traits. But they aren't talking about physiognomy. They aren't talking about meaningful facial features, about shape of the eyes, size of the mouth, telling us about someone's personality, or about embracing individual difference the way I do. They want to conform to a set standard. Everyone is ranked in comparison to this imagined ideal male or female appearance, and we're all on a hierarchy based on how close we approach that. Indeed, all of this talk about this imagined ideal self, all of the procedures they do with injecting hormones, getting surgery, at the very least doing these very feminine style self-care, skincare, makeup type routines. It reminds me a lot of the transgender community, and that's not surprising. Both are composed of mostly dysfunctional young men, incel types who spend all day on Discord, playing video games, watching anime, locked in their own rooms, playing on the computer all day. And there's something about the computer, there's something about the internet that detaches us from our own bodies and eventually makes us hate our bodies, such that we want to become the avatar we see on the computer. And so you can imagine two incels in a Discord server. One has an anime profile picture, the other has a Giga Chat profile picture. It's not hard to imagine how if they spend all day on the computer, they don't have a real life presence, they don't have friends in real life, they don't go outside. Eventually, the guy with the anime profile picture may begin to confuse himself and his real identity as a human being, as the image of God, with his digital false self, with his online persona. And so he eventually may think, well, I need to become an anime girl in order to really be myself. And likewise, the incel Looksmaxer in the same Discord server looks at his Giga Chat profile picture longer and longer and thinks, I need to become that. That's why I don't feel good about myself, is because I'm not Looksmaxed. And oftentimes, these are young guys. Clavicular started injecting himself with testosterone at age 14 because he wanted to Looksmax because he didn't feel good about his body. But I'll say the same thing that I say about transgenderism. No teenager feels good about their body. Every teenager feels weird and ugly and gross in their body. Male or female, it's a universal experience. And so clearly there's a lot of weird, dysfunctional stuff going on with this. Now, there haven't been any good responses to this because a lot of the points they bring up are true. The world is shallow. The world is harsh. Watching Michael Knowles talk to Clavicular was half hilarious, half secondhand embarrassing because Michael Knowles is so out of touch. I know he's a millennial, but he feels like such a boomer. And Clavicular was telling him all this stuff about Looksmaxing and hypergamy and the dating scene, and all Michael Knowles could muster up was meekly saying, well, go to college and get a good job. Michael, if we could get good jobs, we would have good jobs. It's not for lack of trying. It's not like all of Gen Z said, you know what, I don't want a job, I don't want a house, I don't want a family. No, we want all those things. We can't afford them because the economy is rigged in favor of boomers. And working hard, pulling yourself up by the bootstraps, being a nice, honest man, heck, even going to church, as much as I am a Christian, those things don't really change the world. They make yourself better, but they don't change the way the game is rigged. If you want to look at times in history where people have meaningfully reshuffled the deck in their own favor and rearranged things such that the younger generation, the poorer people, were empowered instead of this tiny rich elite, you have to look to America in 1776, France in 1789, Russia in 1917, and I know that's not a conversation Michael Knowles is ready to have. So I think everyone in Gen Z is in agreement that something radical and crazy needs to be done. That's why we're such a radical and crazy generation in a lot of ways. But is Looksmaxing the way? Well, I don't think so. All the things I've said before about it being kind of dysfunction, related to transgenderism, all this other stuff. But for three main reasons in addition to that. First, I don't believe beauty correlates with success or happiness. I haven't seen any studies on this, and I know there is pretty privilege. Of course, people will treat you better. But in terms of success or happiness in life, I intuit that beauty probably has a similar correlation with success or happiness that intelligence has with wealth, or wealth has with happiness. So for those who don't know what I'm talking about, if you look at a graph, intelligence on the x-axis and wealth on the y-axis, income. When your intelligence is below average, below 100, there's a strong correlation, almost 1 to 1. If you're dumber than average, then the dumber you are, the poorer you are. Being unintelligent will make you poor. But once you get above average, then the correlation disappears, drops off. You got very wealthy.
That's so true.
You'll find a solution.
Because then it becomes about like who is connected to what, where's the money flowing, who are you really chilling with. All right, so let me see here. Back in the game. All right, while we're waiting for that ad to go through, any thoughts on that?
We'll break it down in a minute. Let this go through. Like, comment, subscribe, show some love on the channel, and we out here.
Facts, dog.
Let's get it.
Let's go. We're about to finish this one up and then give you guys the sauce, man.
Yes, sir.
Follow us at Instagram.com/5star.
Smart people, and you have very poor smart people. And so a lack of intelligence will result in a lack of wealth. But an increase in intelligence above the average and the baseline will not necessarily result in. So what you want to do is be just smart enough and then build up other things in addition to that. But then with regards to wealth itself, there's a similar correlation with happiness. When someone is below average income, I think it's about $50,000 in America, so enough to get by, to be able to have a comfortable enough life, then when you're below that, having less money does make you less happy. The poorer you are, the unhappier you are. And so as your income is increasing to that, say, 50,000 average baseline, your happiness is increasing in roughly a 1-to-1 correlation. But once you hit average, once you get comfortable, getting wealthier above that does not make you happier. The correlation disappears, just like with intelligence and wealth. And I suspect the same is true with beauty. I can very easily see, and I have seen, how being ugly, being below average, having acne, bad greasy hair, guilty as charged, it's the Mediterranean in me, bad fashion, like wearing baggy t-shirts and hoodies, dressing like a slob, smelling bad, even having a bad jaw recessed chin. I think there is a legitimate place for that. I've been viewing for about 10 years now, and it's had great results for me. There's a legitimate place for Looksmaxing with that, with getting to an average appearance. And when we look in the past, that was one of the benefits of a more conformist society in the 50s and before, where everyone had the nice hair, everyone had the nice suit, people were more balanced in that. And thanks to diets having been a bit better, people had less messed up jaws as well. But once you're average, once you're at what they might call MTN, mid-tier normie, right? I don't know the terminology that well. I don't believe getting above that will necessarily make you more successful or happier. Yeah, you can sort of mod people and feel people be like, whoa, he's a really good-looking guy. But what is that going to get for you, really? I mean, maybe you could become a model or an actor, but I don't really think there are going to be any more careers in that. I think it's all just going to be AI generated going forward. And it looks like as hard as you want, you will never be able to compete with the computer when it comes to generating the prettiest boy imaginable, the most beautiful of the beautiful mice. Likewise with wealth. Being prettier is not going to make you richer. Maybe it'll help with the job interview, but you're already screwed by affirmative action, and with the economy being so tight as it is, that's not something I would want to rely on in a job interview more so than real tangible skills. There is a point in what Michael Knowles said. I think he expressed it poorly in a boomerish way, but skills do matter. knowing stuff, and especially being a driven, radical, with a good work ethic. That's why Clavicular is successful. Not because he mods, he's a great jawline, he's so well groomed, he has such pretty skin, he does his little skincare routine, he puts on his makeup. But no, Clavicular is successful because he is an insane, autistic nut job who is a radical and driven towards his purpose. That's the same reason why someone like Nick Fuentes is successful. After having been grinding in his field for 10 years, he is a driven, insane radical. And in a time of great crisis like we live in, those are the sort of people who succeed. And this leads me to my next point, which is that in a broader sense, men are not called to be pretty, to be beautiful, to be really good looking, to groom themselves. That's a dysfunction. That's a sign of sickness. Again, Clavicular is not the cause of the problems. He's not the disease, he's the symptom. In much the same way that Donald Trump is the symptom of American political dysfunction, Clavicular is the symptom of American interpersonal and relational dysfunction. Can you name a single great man of history who was really concerned with his appearance? I can't. I mean, do you really think Napoleon would have been putting on makeup to look better? Do you think that Caesar was really concerned about mobbing other people with his jawline? Do you think that Isaac Newton had a skincare routine? I mean, come on. Men are supposed to be insanely and radically focused on their own work, on their personal mission. They need to have time and attention for their wives, family, friends, God, of course. But by and large, men need to be like human torpedoes, shooting towards their goals and their aspirations. And that's where greatness and human advancement comes from. And if you're focused on more of what you are than what you do, then you are truly transgender, because that's the classic dichotomy. Men do, women aren't. Men are the masters of the universe, but women are the universe itself. And women reflect the beauty of the universe, and they don't really need to do because they already do the most important thing, which is creating new human beings. Men, in a sense, have to compensate for not being really generative, and that's by being generative in other ways. People make jokes about guy owning rocket ships or skyscrapers overcompensating. I think they kind of are for not being able to birth children. And there's another layer to this, where this whole culture, and I see this a lot on TikTok, because I follow a lot of Looksmaxing, black pill guys on TikTok, this whole culture of conforming to the world, of saying, well, society is shallow, society just like the appearance, so I have to fit the ideal appearance in order so that society can approve of me and give me what I want. That's pathetic. That's the mindset of a slave. Like, yeah, you want to look nice, and you want to be polite, you want to put your best foot forward with people, but a man does not ask. A man does not beg. Max Stirner, one of my favorite philosophers, he said, rights can never be given by the state. They must be won by force. If the state is granting you a right, you don't really have that right. The master is letting his slave do something, but the master is still in charge. A man's purpose in life is not to be so pretty that people give him what he wants. A man's purpose in life is to be so good, so competent, so strong, that he seizes what he wants by his own will. And I may be sounding a little Nietzschean right now, so let me counteract it by getting a little Christian too. Isaiah, in his prophecy on Christ, says that he had no comeliness or loveliness that we should admire or envy him. He said that Christ looked ugly because he was beaten and bruised and scarred when he was being tortured and crucified. But he had his eye on the prize. He was driven towards his goal of redeeming humanity, of sacrifice and resurrection. And that's what all people in a sense are called to be, men and women, but men especially, because men are called to be the direct frontline warriors, the protectors and guardians and conquerors of this world. And that leads me to my final point. Beauty is pointless without God. Store not up treasures on earth where thief steals and rust destroys and moth eats away, but store up treasures in heaven instead. You're spending all this time, mental energy and stuff on making yourself look pretty. Give it a few decades, that's going to melt away. We all get ugly and old and fat, and then we die, and our bodies are thrown into the dirt, and we get eaten by bugs, and then our bones rot away into ash and dust and dirt, and then we're nothing, and then it was all pointless, it was all for nothing. Even the wealthy, even the actually successful, the people with the money and the power that the Looksmaxers wish they could have, but instead of being hogged by all these ugly guys like Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates, even that's going to pass away. So if you aren't focused on something transcendent, something ascendant, something above this mere physical reality, it was all pointless. There's no reason to do it. Your whole life, your whole existence is meaningless unless it is directed towards a transcendent purpose. Ideally, this would be metaphysical, religious, transcendent in an Evolian sense of aligning yourself with a divine purpose and sort of shooting up to heaven, whether by contemplation, prayer, heroic action, whatever that may be, or at the very least, leaving a legacy, having a positive impact on other people. And those points there are the main areas where Looksmaxing falls short. It fails to achieve what it seeks out to do, which is answer these problems of meaning and getting into relationships and all that. And even though these guys care so much about the masculine appearance, I don't think they'll ever get it because they lack the masculine, manly spirit that then creates that appearance through physiognomy. This has been Taylor from Pursuit Insights, reminding you to always judge a book by its cover. Thank you.
All right, big dog, what you got for us? What's the breakdown?
Hell yeah. So with Clavicular and this Looksmaxing, you have to understand that he is very extreme, and he said it in the podcast here. He's extreme. You have to have some discernment and know who you are. So if Clav is breaking his jaw, doing shit with the hammer, that doesn't mean that you have to do that. That if you're like, damn, I look like shit, I need to look better, you could go to the gym, you could have a skincare routine. You don't have to go to that extreme. He's just an extreme example. That's how he's gotten to where he is. So you have to have some discernment, be able to say, this is who I am, this is what I'll do. You don't have to do everything that Clavicular is doing. He's just extreme, and that's why he's big. So you should really be looks maxing, money maxing, and doing everything. You don't have to just do one thing. I don't believe that looks is the everything for a man. It's not. Yeah, it'll open doors. You'll if you go out at night, you'll get more women if you look a lot better, but it's not your goal, your purpose as far as creating a career, being able to provide for your family when you do have one. If you don't have one, that's what's important. Looksmaxing isn't everything, but it's not something to just completely disregard. You don't want to be a fat fuck millionaire because you disregarded your health and your body, because then girls are just going to want you because you have money. Anytime you see a fat, ugly dude with money, you automatically assume that. Anytime you see a fat, ugly dude with money and he has a bad bitch, you're like, okay, he has money. Like, that's the first thing you think of in your head if you see a bad bitch with a fat dude. Is like, he has to have money. So it's like, you don't want to be that guy to where you're just getting girls because you only have money. You also want to work on your physique, on your facial features, and do that and build your character as well. Like Clav, the dude's right. He's not famous because he just looks max. He has a personality. He's interesting. He's authentic. He's true to who he is. So it's not just that one thing. So don't hear looks maxing and all this shit, money maxing, and think, oh, this is all that matters. This is only it. No, it's everything. There's not one only thing that works. It's everything. So you got to max out on everything as best as you can.
Yeah, I know, 100%. See, maxing out on everything the best that you can, you're going to be more in alignment with 5-star and with what 5-star is trying to teach you guys here, right? But on another level, I'm just going to call it what it is. Looks maxing, the way it's being presented to you, is gay, transgender, homosexual bullshit. And the reason it comes off as extremely weird, and the reason that you're not going to do it, but you've heard about it, and the reason it's popping up in your feed is because society is in a decaying state. It's just like this guy was saying. He's basically saying that they're on Discord all day. They were iPad kids. They've been on the computer all day, and now they are so disconnected from their body that they want to become the avatar on the screen that they see. And I'm not talking about Clive specifically, but we're talking about the symptom of where we are in society, right? And if in society you are finding yourself more concerned, as a homosexual would be concerned, or as a transgender would be concerned with your looks, as if maximizing your looks is going to give you some great anything, it's not. It's like, buying a Lamborghini might be cool for 20 seconds extra when you meet a girl for the first time. Having exuberant amounts of money might be cool for a couple moments the first time you meet a chick. Looking good might be really good the first time you meet a chick, but after that little bullshit moment, if you don't have the skills, the character, the stamina, the charisma, the ability to be entertaining, interesting, if you can't host somebody at your own home and be kind and fun, if you can't bear fruits, if you aren't going anywhere with your life, none of these things matter. And in fact, if I were to look at it from the perspective that, hold on one second, does the audio sound weird to you?
No, it's good.
All right.
To me, it's good.
All right, so from the perspective that we're looking at with these rats here, right, if they're truly in the death phase, and if people in Clav's age group are in that phase, they are going through a lot of different psychological, biological, physiological traumas, essentially. So because they're so disconnected from reality, because they were born into a disconnected reality, we over here at 5 Star really would be presenting the only real solutions for them, because the boomers aren't going to do it. The other millennials are too damn tired. And we're over here saying, listen, what you guys need to do is, look, if you already did your meth and you already did your steroids and you already did your hammer smashing against the face to make yourself look more beautiful in the most odd set of circumstances that you could to commit to being better at whatever the hell you're trying to do, we're over here trying to give you the healing that you actually need to go from that weird, deranged, demented, unrealistic, deranged-looking way of looking at the world into a more character-based, real, substantial, substance-based way of looking at the world, right? For all of you here, I would want you to look at things through a lens of looking through religion, the Bible, God first. I'd want you looking through a set of morality first. I want you to be deeply involved with your family, your family's name, your family's culture, your family's point of looking at the world, like their point of view of looking at the world, and you would be a representation of your family to the point of which the woman you choose would be a good representation of you, be a good representation of who you are and what you stand for to your friends and your family. And then the further that you go down this trajectory of putting yourself in a dating situation with a partner, that the woman that you choose is not only a good reflection of you, but a beacon or a standard of what women want to raise themselves to be in society, because you raise that woman to be what is the standard, which is constantly being hired and raised to be better, right? None of that bullshit, or none of that is going to be found in this bullshit Looksmaxing society. There is no end game to it. It's not good. It's not dope. It's not cool. It doesn't get you money, fame, riches, bitches. It gets you nothing. And it'll be a symptom, a deranged stain on where we are in the progression of society as a whole today. Unfortunately, if society today is rendering, I mean, this could be a blip in time, right? It could be a couple months go by. It could be springtime, summertime, May, June, July, August could start hitting, and we all forgot about Looksmaxing, right? But if that's not the case, and we start seeing more and more overly aware, disconnected, overly technologicalized kids that are only eating food that they've ordered and they don't know how to do anything else if it doesn't fit what the button told them to do on the screen. If they only know how to do this to eat, and there's no other way for these kids to really function in society, just like when you see the Jimmy Kimmel video of people being handed a can opener, and millennials and ages under don't know how to use a can opener, a basic skill, you could be seeing the ushering in of a society that could be here one moment and not there the next. Literally, if we do not get our shit together, we are hanging on a string. Come over here to 5 Star. We're going to give you the exact characteristics and step-by-step plans that you need to live a life that is fruitful, prosperous, dealing with better circumstances, putting you in a position of winning, integrating yourself into society, people that want you to be there, formulating brotherhoods, getting into communities. And the best case scenario is if you have a kid in one of those communities, that in turn becomes a society from your seed. We want you to be fruitful and multiply.
Oh yeah, my take on it is some guys they need a Looksmax. I mean, I've seen fat fucks that are just, they look fucking terrible. Young guys, old guys, and no bitch is gonna want to fuck you. Yeah, if you're funny as fuck, charismatic, and you're fat and just ugly as shit, you might be able to fucking get some girls to laugh her panties off. But for the most part, if you are just completely out of shape and you don't look good at all, I don't like hanging out with fat people. I don't care how much money you have. I don't care what you have going on. I do not like hanging out with fat people at all. Fat men at all. I don't like hanging around fat men to any extent. That shit is just disgusting. Like, stay away from me. So if you're fat as shit and you're a man and you're ugly as shit, you should probably Looksmax for 6 months or a year. When I say Looksmax, you don't have to fucking... You don't have to hit your fucking jaw to the max. You don't have to break your jaw. And I'm not saying that. When I say Looksmax, I mean, let's lower the bar a little bit. Let's just hit the gym 4 or 5 times a week. Hit the gym, run some laps, get a couple miles in. That's the version of Looksmax. And again, you don't have to go to the extreme of clavicular. Just fucking go to the gym, lift some weights, get a new haircut, and Yeah, focus on your looks a little bit. That way you can actually get some pussy and some bitches actually want you. Because looksmaxing, that's been around. Like, I've seen this shit before. Clav's just the extreme one. There's guys who've been on the internet telling you to have a skincare routine, get your body in shape. But some guys, then I look at you, I'm like, if I was a girl, I wouldn't fuck you. Like you need to focus on your body, your health, and get in the gym, your physique. That way you can get a girl. Because some guys need that. At every point in your life as a man, there should be a point in time where just one thing is your main focus. Rather you go a year, 2, 3 years only focusing on money. You go a year or however long only focusing on the gym or making the gym your main focus. You really prioritizing it a lot. At some point in your life, you're going to go through those steps as a man where it's like you're hitting the gym super hard for a year, 2 years in your life, and maybe you're not making as much money. You didn't mean for it to be that way, but it just happened. And then, 2 years down the road, you're only working and then you've slacked on the gym. So at some point, it's not one or the other. You need to do all these things. But if I'm speaking for myself or the average guy, you don't have to go to the extreme of looksmaxing. But if you're a guy out there who you're just completely overweight, you're obese, you wake up feeling disgusting, you look terrible, you need a new haircut. If you're one of those guys, you need to start looksmaxing. Start looking up new haircuts. Start figuring out getting a gym routine and doing that. So when I say looksmaxing, don't think of the extreme that you have to go with Clav. Think of, I just need to look better. That way I can get some self-confidence. Because if you're some fat dude and you don't feel good, you feel like shit when you talk to girls, you're hella insecure when you talk to girls. The reason for that is because you look like shit. So get in the fucking gym and get better. Like, that's my take on it.
Big fact. So I will kind of lead you guys into a whole. We'll talk about that right now, right? We'll talk about looking good for dating and stuff, right? This reminds me of an encounter that I had with Bandman Kevo. I meet Bandman Kevo and I talked to him, and he had just been post a surgery, right? Like, he did a surgery, and I think he did a liposuction because he was dealing with the fact that he's a very big, strong guy, and he had been working out, but he was just having a problem area that he wasn't able to eliminate. So he went ahead and he felt that, I got money, I got time, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to get a liposuction in that area so I could show off my abs or whatever, right? And he got some social media headlines and clowning for that. But keep in mind, I'm going to break down for you guys what this is, right? Words matter, and looksmaxing and getting plastic surgery are two different things. For example, if you were to get veneers, make your teeth really white, get a hair transplant, make your skin look better, work out, those are categorically what those things are, right? Words matter in the sense that if I were to say something to you along the lines of my truth, there is no such thing as my truth. There's only the truth, right? Looksmaxing, I'm just going to call it what it is. It's an over-sensationalized, clickbait, shock value headline that is absolute bullshit for most people in the modern day, I'm hoping. Because this is my fear. My fear is that if we're watching this shit and people are actually so disconnected that they are becoming the same makeup as a transgender, so disconnected from your body because you've been overstimulated from all of your time on the internet and all of your time in a decaying society and shut out from all the people above you, and you're at the end of a decaying society and you think the only thing you could do is do what Clav has done, and you start doing what Clav has done and taking yourself to the over-sensationalized dynamics of smashing your face with a hammer or injecting yourself with steroids or taking methamphetamines or letting yourself go infertile or making sure that you know steroid usage to the point where your hair doesn't fall out so you understand all the biochemical natures and measurements that you have to essentially memorize in order to live a life that's basically reliant upon chemical substances is not the same as going to the gym. Keep in mind, you're talking to a matchmaker, and one of the first things that me and Tez are going to tell you is that if you want to get in the game of dating, you need to look good. Looking good is not fucking looksmaxing. Looking good is going to the gym. Looking good is working out. Looking good is making sure that you got clothes that are good looking and fitted to you, and you took the extra time and effort and energy to get that shit tailored. You see, we're going already on this conversation right here. This is literally leading to a luscious, grateful, fruitful life, because as a man, you should understand what it takes to have a tailor. You should be working out, measuring your biceps, measuring your chest, your neck, and your waist to make sure that a suit is not only custom tailored fit to you on your own dollar, but that as time goes on, you could send your measurements to people and they send you custom suits all the time. And these are the things that make you look good. Overwhelmingly, women love men in a suit. And like I said, if you're going to go down some of the beauty enhancement routes and you're going to get like veneers to make your teeth perfectly white, or if you're going to do hair transplants that men will have to do, or if you're going to do, like Bandman Kevo, he went out and he did what in my eyes is pretty extreme for most dudes to do, a little bit of liposuction here and there. These things are going to make you a good-looking man. And what does that mean, though? Why are we telling you to do this? We're telling you to be a good-looking man to respect yourself. And when you become a good-looking man to respect yourself, you're respecting the people around you, and you're most importantly respecting your potential mates, because you're not going to have one chick when you're looking good. You know what I'm saying? So you want to... If you're outwardly becoming obese, like Tez, I hate hanging out with fat people too, bro. I had this dude in college that I remember, he was a doctor and he was so obese, and me and this fitness trainer kept telling him to work out, and he wouldn't work out, and he was lazy, and his skin was gross, and his nails were gross. He was a good dude, but he smelled like shit, and he was like to the other person, and he just like constantly was a gross being. We couldn't get through because what he was dealing with was on a mental level, right? And that's the problem with you guys out here in dating, is that the biggest problem, bro, I was hanging out with a model right before we got here in Fort Lauderdale, and I'm hanging out with her, and she's a beautiful fucking girl, and she says the biggest problem that she ever dealt with when she was dating guys as a younger girl coming up to where she is now in her later 20s is that, well, no, she turned 30 now, is that the men were hygienically gross. Can you imagine that? Bro, like, Myron says that shit on FNF. Girls are saying this shit in real life. Dudes are out here just being gross. Like, you guys are in the extreme opposite. Like, you would literally be better off doing meth and smashing your face than being gross. You know what I mean? Like, what the frick? But, if you're not going to go to that extreme, because I know that most of you are not, I'm hoping. And if you are currently sitting in like the Osmond Golds of the world, Osmond Gold, I don't know if you guys know him, but like, he shout out to him as a YouTuber. But as a human being, homie's whole entire YouTube studio is trashed with garbage. There's mold everywhere. He's famous for it. There's flies everywhere. He lets everything get disgusting and messy. Me and Tez are always keeping this studio in tip-top shape, man. We keep it clean out here because it's a representation of what we want to do. Us being cleanly is a signal of respect to invite people over here and let them enjoy their time over here with us on the podcast and do what we need to do, right? Taking care of yourself is a signal of respect. And that reminds me of a story real quick that I knew of a guy who would come to a job and he smelled bad to the point where people that were coworkers told him, don't ever come back until this job until you start taking care of your hygiene. You know what I mean? Like that is a real thing. So there's got to be, you guys got to have a very high standard. You got to be clean teeth. You got to be taking care of your teeth. You got to be dental flossing. Your hair's got to be on point. Your eyes got to be on point. You got to be in shape. Your gym routine has to be on point. Your health needs to be on point. And all these are just the basic prerequisites of you to be the best version of yourself as a man, to then be the best version of yourself as a man that's taking on one or multiple girlfriends, women in general.
1000%. And it's like you really have to know who you are and know what your version of these things are, especially with dealing with the internet. You don't want to let other people's perception or beliefs take over what you actually believe deep down. It's like you'll hear someone like Grant Cardone talk and say $1 million is a lot of money, $10 million is a lot of money, when you might be someone that's making $50K a year working at a customer service job or call center or McDonald's or somewhere, and you're like, what the fuck is he talking about? $1 million is not a lot of money. If I made $1 million, I would feel so good. And then when you get to that point, you realize it's not a lot of money. But it's like, what's your version? If you ask 10 people what their version of being rich is, you might get 10 different answers. So it's like your version of Looksmaxing may be fucking going to the gym or just getting yourself in shape. Like you have guys like Tristan Tate, fucking Myron, who do like the hair transplant shit. To an extent, that is Looksmaxing. but they didn't make their whole fucking premise just based on their looks. Clav, he's an extreme example. He said it in interviews. He's very extreme when it comes to things. That's who he is deep down as an individual. So ask yourself deep down, is your Looksmaxing going to be getting veneers? Is it going to be you getting the liposuction? Forget Looksmax on your version, do that. And the same with money maxing. Money max on your version. Just because Grant Cardone is saying you have to have $100 million in order to, or you have to make $440,000 a year to be rich, or else you're broke or whatnot. It's like, no, that is Grant Cardone's version. To you, to live a good life and provide for your family, it may be $200,000 a year. You have to find out what it is for you to live a comfortable and satisfying life. Because if you just go off the internet, if you look at Clav or Grant Cardone and only do what they're telling you to do, or doing what they're doing, you're going to get lost in the sauce and caught up and just lose yourself and not know what the fuck is going on with yourself. Stay true to yourself and find out what it is with you and what you need to do so you can get the result that you're looking for. Because if not, you're just going to be following other people's footsteps, keeping up with the Joneses, trying to be someone that you're not, because you're going to be living in someone else's life. So take a deep dive inside, find out what you need to do to get your result. If you're a guy, you're like, I just want an average girl. She doesn't have to be that attractive. She just needs to be average. And you're fat, then all you really have to do is just get in the gym, look a little better, get a better haircut, focus on get some charisma, talk to girls, and then you'll be able to get that. If you're a guy that needs to date a 10 model, you desire a 10 model, you're going to need to make a lot of money, look a lot better than you do, so you can get the ultimate maximum result based on what you're looking for. So find out what it is that you want, what you desire, and focus on that. Never think that you need to focus on one thing to get a certain outcome. Like, what's the name? Justin Wallace said this: fill up all your buckets. It's never just one thing. Your inadequacy is her way out. So if you're a guy with a lot of money but you're fat, she's gonna find a dude that is broke but he's in shape, and he's gonna start fucking your bitch, because your inadequacy, what you lack is what she's gonna look for in someone else. So if you're a guy who's in shape, all you fucking do is hit the gym, but you don't have a job, you're still living with your mom, guess what? She's gonna maybe go date a fat dude with a whole lot of money. So the point here is that focus on multiple different things. It's never just one thing. And as a man, your looks is not everything. Not a woman. Her looks is everything, or the majority of it. Her looks is prioritized, and everything else comes after that. As a man, it's not looks. It's about building your character, building a career, being successful. But your looks does play a part. It's not something to completely disregard. So fill up your bucket in each aspect as possible. That way she can look at you and say, damn, he's in shape, he looks good, he has a career, he's able to provide for himself, he's charismatic, have all these things. That way it's harder for her to leave, because the moment you completely lack in one area, she's going to find it in someone else, and then you're done.
Big facts, homie. And, I want that, that being said, I want to go as far as to say that, what is making yourself look better mean? Why do we do that to begin with? If you were making yourself look better, I would think that's a very good thing, because what that signals is that you're going to be respected by your peers in society, your coworkers and your colleagues and your students, and if you're in college and all the people around you are going to respect you because you're putting time into self-improvement. But it also, when you're improving on your looks, it also, in a very healthy way, signals, I want to have sex, or I am going to be having sex. So I am going to be sexually attractive to the opposite mate. The girl has to like me, or in the opposite situation, the girl has to like the guy has to like the girl. You know what I mean? Like, you guys have to be attracted to each other physically. That is there. Dog. There are definitely girls that I'm physically attracted to on the regular that I got a type, man. I got multiple types. You can find that in this video right here. And on another note, I will say this. If you do these things correctly, it is a marathon. It is not a race. You have to understand. Now, this is very specific to Clav. Very specifically to him, we are all biological material. We're all humans. And I've seen time and time again, year over year, that when people make alterations to their body when they're young, as time goes on and they get older and they age, there is no chemical, no surgery, no Botox, no nothing you could do to reverse the effects of aging. And when your biology is very tampered with at a younger age and you start seeing yourself look crazy at an older age, that could be avoided by just not playing around with your biological chemical makeup. And if you don't, get your lip fillers and your Botoxes and your makeup and all the weird shit that you do to alter the chemical makeup of your human body, you were born in a body that's going to give you a very good and long longevity and a healthy life if you maintain a very good diet, if you eat very healthy, if you get away from the food that we're dealing with in America, and you go off onto more organic routes, which is actually, I have some episodes lined up that we could do. I'm gonna talk about it with Tez and give you guys some sauce on what you can do to like really sustain yourself at home, But if you are coming up in the world, that's a whole different thing that I want to get into too, right? Because like I was saying, looks can actually, as you get older, come off worse if you don't maintain yourself correctly. So we'll see what happens in time as time goes by. But there's a whole other thing that I wanted to tell you guys real quick, right? There's another thing that's more important than your looks. It's called coming up in life. Coming up, right? Coming up is like a whole different thing. And I would much rather you guys go down a road where you're coming up in life and people can see it in you. For example, there was a lady who was the mother to one of my best friends down in Boca Raton at the time, right? And her son was like in North Florida somewhere. I want to say like Ohio or something, right? And one day, after many years of being in college, I'm walking down the street, and I just so happen to walk past her. And when she sees me, she immediately gets like excited about the fact that when she sees me, she can tell that I am 10 times a different man than the man that she met. She was like, she had a very strong Creole accent, so it was very hard to understand her. But she was basically saying, "Oh, Christopher, you have come up in life. You've come up in life so much." She's trying to tell me that she's seen that I've developed characteristics that I'm carrying around with me that are developing me as a man. And she almost sees it like in the spiritual, physical world happening, that good things are happening for me, right? And what does that mean? Well, let me put it like this, right? Let's say that you were a criminal and you're doing bad things and you're being deceptive and you're loading up guns and you're shooting up places and you're being a gangster and you're the coolest motherfucker on the streets, and you've taken a bunch of pictures with a bunch of gangsters that were in hip-hop videos, and people scare you, and now you get to say that you're the coolest thug that would be dope in like a 2005 music video or hip-hop movie, right? If you go down that road, what's going to happen is that the more that you lean into it in this life that you're conditioned to lean into from the public school, what's going to happen is that on some level, people are going to clock you and they're going to see you for what you are, which is demonstrative, right? They're going to see you as someone that is a drag on society, and you don't have to do anything to walk past them for them to feel that. This is just what the Gen Zers or the Clavs of the world would call aura. You would have very negative aura, bad aura, bullshit aura. We don't want that aura. Versus a man who is working, studying hard, doing the right things, reaping the fruitful behaviors, making people proud of him that he grew up with, or putting time into your job efforts and energy and planning out your future and working on creating a more substantial, founded world for yourself, right? When you actually are doing those things and you're committed to a path, and let's say that you were becoming a lawyer and people knew you as just a kid who was like skinny and played tennis here and there, and you were scrappy and you didn't have much clothes, but you committed to being a lawyer. So they saw you invest the time that it takes to get the suits. They saw you invest the time that it takes to get the relationships. Now you have more money. So now, as a result of having more money, you take better care of yourself. And because you take better care of yourself, you look really good, and your clothing is coming off really good, and your environment and your aura and you're healthy, and your spirit is healthy, and everything about you is coming off as fruitfulness. And they see this in you. And then all of a sudden, if we were to contrast you and put you in like a random Walmart, and now you're in a random Walmart, and all the people in that Walmart are kind of like coming off as dregs of society, but you stand out as like a very top quality human being, an individual that doesn't even belong there. That is way more where I would rather have you be as a man, working on yourself and focusing on yourself. This is where multiple facets, including your looks, all come together to ultimately deliver a full packaged man. And a full packaged man is the most dangerous, hated on person that you can be in the modern day, because the government is doing everything it can to create propaganda against you becoming that. The women are saying everything they can to destroy you at the core of leaning into this. The other dudes around you that are soft are doing everything they can to pull you down and tear you down and say, no, you got to be soft and beta like us. Because if you ascend to this higher challenge, if you go to the higher ranks, you are going to be just some asshole, right? And I want you to be that motherfucking asshole, because you'll be a winner, bitch.
1,000%. Yeah, and it's best to just get better. Because if you're an average dude just going through life and you have a girl, the next dude just needs to be a little slightly above average and your girl's gone. It's like Andrew Tate says, it's like the dude working at KFC. That dude that has a girlfriend, the bad part about that is that everyone's competition. At least if you're a dude making $250,000 a year, you're making $1 million a year, or you're just on your shit and you're above average, even, and it doesn't have to just be money, with height something that you can't fucking earn or you can't do, but let's just say your muscles, your weight, your muscle, you have a good physique. If you're not a little bit above average in those, everyone's competition for you. So it's like, then it's like, what the fuck? So your girl can be taken at any moment. The pool of guys that can compete with you is so much more bigger when you're just below average, or just average, that it's like, damn, like you're competing against everyone. So become above average. It doesn't have to be 100%, but just as much as you can in each aspect. That way you don't have to, everyone doesn't have to be competition. You can fucking out-compete other dudes.
Discipline and routine is very attractive, man. That being said, I think me and Tez are about to wrap it up here, but we have a lot of cool things coming for you guys, right? I'm going to work on the technical back end of 5-star. We have some cool things coming in that's going to really be good for you guys, and it's going to help you connect with me and Tez, and we're going to bring you as much value as we possibly can. But that being said, homie, I'm ready to wrap this thing up, man. I got the hiccups. I can't do that.
Let's go. We gave him some heat today. 5-star family, we out here. Stay tuned. Like, comment, subscribe. Let's get it. We here.
Big facts. We up.